Good afternoon, children. We are moving to our next life process, that is transportation. Transportation in human beings and transportation in plants. These are the topics we are going to discuss today. All living organisms need a few necessary components like air, water, and food for their survival. On a regular basis, animals ensure these elements by breathing, drinking, and eating. The required elements are transported to their body cells and the tissues by a transportation system. So here we are going to discuss about the transportation in human beings. We have seen in previous sections that blood transports food, oxygen, and waste materials in our bodies. In class 9th, we learnt about blood being a fluid connective tissue. Blood consists of a fluid medium called plasma in which the cells are suspended. Plasma transports food, carbon dioxide, and nitrogenous wastes in dissolved form. And oxygen is carried by the red blood cells. Many other substances like salts are also transported by the blood. We thus need a pumping organ to push blood around the body, a network of tubes to reach all the tissues, and a system in place to ensure that this network can be repaired if damaged. Transportation in humans is done by the circulatory system. The circulatory system in humans mainly consists of blood vessels, and heart. It is responsible for the supply of oxygen, nutrients, removal of carbon dioxide, and other excretory products. It also helps to fight against the infections. Here you can see the structural details of the heart. You can see the aorta, pulmonary arteries, pulmonary veins, left atrium, left ventricle, the septum, that is the dividing wall, right ventricle, vena cava, right atrium, vena cava from upper body. Everything is labeled there. You can go through the details. Here comes our pumping organ, the heart. You can see the various parts from the given diagram. Just go through that. The heart is a muscular organ which is as big as our fist. Because both oxygen and carbon dioxide have to be transported by the blood, the heart has different chambers to prevent the oxygen-rich blood from mixing with the blood containing carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide-rich blood has to reach the lungs for the carbon dioxide to be removed, and the oxygenated blood from the lungs has to be brought back to the heart. This oxygen-rich blood is then pumped to the rest of the body. We can follow this process step by step from the figure given in the slide. Oxygen-rich blood from chamber of the heart on the left, that is the left atrium. The left atrium relaxes when it is collecting this blood. It then contracts, while the next chamber, the left ventricle, expands so that the blood is transferred to it. When the muscular left ventricle contracts in its turn, the blood is pumped out to the body. Deoxygenated blood comes from the body to the upper chamber on the right atrium. As it expands, as the right atrium contracts, the corresponding lower chamber, the right ventricle, dilates. This transfers blood to the right ventricle, which in turn pumps it to the lungs for oxygenation. Since ventricles have to pump blood into various organs, they have thicker muscular walls than the atria do. Valves ensures that blood does not flows back when the atria or ventricles contract. From this presentation, you will get a clear idea about how the blood is flowing through the heart. Just go through it. Next, we are going to discuss about the major part of the pumping system, that is the tubes or the blood vessels. Arteries are the vessels which carry blood away from the heart to various organs of our body. Since the blood emerges from the heart under high pressure, the arteries have thick and elastic walls that you already seen there from the previous diagram. Veins collect the blood from different organs and bring it back to the heart. They do not need thick walls because the blood is no longer under pressure. Instead, they have valves that ensure that the blood flows only in one direction. On reaching an organ or tissue, the artery divides into smaller and smaller vessels to bring the blood in contact with all the individual cells. The smallest vessels have walls which are one cell thick and are called capillaries. Exchange of materials between the blood and the surrounding cells takes place across this thin wall. The capillaries are joined together to form veins that convey blood away from the organ or tissues. Now we are going to discuss about blood pressure. The force that blood exerts against the wall of a vessel is called blood pressure. This pressure is much greater in arteries than in veins. The pressure of blood inside the artery during the ventricular systole, that is contraction, is called systolic pressure, and the pressure in artery during the ventricular diastole, that is relaxation, is called diastolic pressure. The normal systolic pressure is about 120 millimeter of Hg and diastolic pressure is 80 millimeter of Hg. Now what is this mmHg? That is, blood pressure readings are expressed in millimeters of mercury. The unit is abbreviated as mmHg. A normal reading would be any blood pressure below 120/80 mmHg and above 90/60 mmHg in an adult. Blood pressure is measured with an instrument called sphygmomanometer. High blood pressure is also called hypertension and is caused by the constriction of arterioles, which results in increased resistance to blood flow. It can lead to the rupture of an artery and internal bleeding. What happens if the system of tubes develops a leak? Think about the situations when we are injured and start bleeding. Naturally, the loss of blood from the system has to be minimized. In addition, leakage would lead to a loss of pressure, which would reduce the efficiency of the pumping system. To avoid this, the blood has platelets which circulate around the body and plug these leaks by helping to clot the blood at this point of injury. And along with this, we are going to discuss about another type of fluid, that is lymph, which is involved in the transportation. This is called lymph or tissue fluid. Through the pores present in the walls of the capillaries, some amount of plasma, proteins and the blood cells escape into the intercellular spaces in the tissues to form the tissue fluid or lymph. It is similar to the plasma of blood but colorless and contains less protein. Lymph drains into lymphatic capillaries from the intercellular spaces, which join to form large lymph vessels that finally open into larger veins. Lymph carries digested and absorbed fat from intestine and drains excess fluid from extracellular space back into the blood. In human body, blood circulates through the heart twice. Once it goes through the heart during pulmonary circulation and second time during systemic circulation. Hence, the circulation in human beings is called double circulation. We'll discuss the details. The separation of the right side and the left side of the heart is useful to keep oxygenated and deoxygenated blood from mixing. Such separation allows a highly efficient supply of oxygen to the body. This is useful in animals that have high energy needs, such as birds and mammals, which constantly use energy to maintain their body temperature. In animals that do not use energy for this purpose, the body temperature depends on the temperature in the environment. Such animals like amphibians or many reptiles have three-chambered hearts and tolerate some mixing of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood streams. Fishes, on the other hand, have only two chambers to their hearts and the blood is pumped to the gills, is oxygenated there and passes directly to the rest of the body. Thus, blood goes only once through the heart in the fish during one cycle of passage through the body. On the other hand, it goes through the heart twice during each cycle in other vertebrates. This is known as double circulation.